deficit with Canada. Francois Desmarais is my guest, Vice President of Trade and Industry at the Canadian Steel Producers Association. Francois, thanks for your time. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so it's Monday. We know that the Foreign Affairs Minister is heading to Washington on Wednesday, and the deadline potentially is Saturday. What would it mean if those tariffs come in for your industry, for the steel industry?
Well, it's going to be very disruptive for industry because both the Canadian and steel industry are highly integrated, and only the threat of tariff on our sector could mean a lot of impact and a disruption of supply chain, and potentially we're talking about chaos in our supply chain in our industry.
Obviously you guys have got a plan. So are you bracing for these tariffs? Do you think they will be brought in on Saturday?
We're hoping not. Of course, we're taking this threat very seriously. Being one of the only two sectors that faced tariff under the Trump administration previously, we know that this threat is serious, that we need Canadian government to address those threats and those concerns from our industry, because it's very possible that it happens. But of course, we don't want it. And that's why we're also advocating for the Canadian government that if tariffs are imposed on us, or at least on the steel industry, that Canada should retaliate to those tariffs.
Obviously, the Canadian government is trying to use logic and factual arguments here. Are you worried that that may not be working with an administration, Francois, who has been very clear that they have an America First view of the world, regardless of whether, for example, the steel industry, as you're pointing out, is so integrated in Canada, much like the automating industry. I mean, there's a lot of industries where they work really hand in glove. Sometimes that doesn't seem to be resonating with the Trump administration. Your thoughts?
Yeah, right. I think I need to point out to the fact that over the last year, and even in the last few months, our industry and our governments have better aligned their policy and targeting really common threat when it comes to unfair trade practices between our two countries. But we cannot just stay there and just reiterate the same points again and again. I think that if the Americans government and the American steel industry, for example, has some concern, that I think we need to address them and work together to address those concerns.
Yeah, what could that look like, what you just said, working together to address some of the concerns the Americans have? What could Canada do?
When it comes to the steel sector, we know that the most important offender in the steel industry is China. And the Canadian government has worked in the past few months to align its response to unfair practices coming from China in the steel industry. And there's much room for improvement on our front to better align with the U.S. and address those common threats. And working with the American has been more successful for both our industry than just going alone.
Francois Desmarais is joining us from Ottawa. He is with the Canadian Steel Producers Association, a Vice President of Trade and Industry Affairs. Thanks for your time, Francois. Much appreciated.
Thanks for having me.